Welcome to our training, Manage Your Experiments, Set Up a Test for Listing Content. In this second video of the Manage Your Experiments series, you'll get step-by-step instructions for setting up a test in the MYE tool. If you haven't watched our first video on planning an MYE test, we recommend viewing it before you continue with this second training. We also recommend watching our third video to learn how to interpret the results of an experiment. Before we review the steps for setting up an MYE test, remember that a product needs to belong to a brand enrolled in Amazon Brand Registry to be part of an experiment. The seller setting up the experiment in MYE also needs to be internal to the brand. If you'd like more information about brand registry and access to brand selling benefits like MYE, see the series of modules in our Seller University course, Launch Your Brand in the Amazon Store. When you've finished planning your MYE test, you can begin setup in Seller Central anytime. Hover over Brands in the main menu. Click Build Your Brand. Then click Manage Your Experiments in the list of supporting programs. On the next page, click the Get Started with Manage Your Experiments button to go to the tool. Then click the Create a New Experiment drop-down menu and select the type of listing content you want to test. If you select bullet points, main image, product description, or product title, you'll then select your reference ASIN in the pop-up and continue setup in the MYE tool. Remember that if you're testing a product title or main image, MYE will populate your experiment with both parent and child products. You'll be able to deselect individual child products, but the parent product must be part of your MYE test because it's the primary driver of detail page traffic. If you select A+ content as your test type, you'll be taken to the A+ Content Manager, where you can click the Select a Reference ASIN button to open a similar pop-up. You'll then continue setting up your MYE experiment in the A+ Content Manager. Remember that we cascade your experiment across all products that have your existing content published on their detail pages. You'll be able to see all these associated ASINs later when you select the A+ content you want to test. But to prevent mismatched A+ content from appearing to customers, you won't be able to deselect associated ASINs. After selecting a reference ASIN in either the MYE tool or A+ Content Manager, you can review and add details to your test. If you're testing a title, image, product description, or about this item bullets, your experiment's details will automatically default to help optimize your test. But you can review and update them by clicking the View Settings toggle. You can update the name for your experiment, which helps you identify and review your test results later. You can also add the hypothesis you developed during MYE planning. This can help you assess your results when they're available weeks later. The last details for your MYE test are duration, start date, and publication. For duration, the default is 2 significance, meaning we'll automatically end your experiment when enough data has been collected. For start date, the default is the first day after the standard validation period for the content type you're testing. You can adjust your start date by clicking the calendar icon and selecting any date after the content validation period. Or you can adjust your experiment's start date and duration by selecting Set Duration. If you select a specific duration for your MYE test instead of using 2 significance, we recommend using 8 or 10 weeks whenever possible because shorter durations can produce misleading results. Next, you'll see the default Start My Experiment Sooner if possible. This means we'll move your start date up if we complete validation early. But you can deselect this setting if you prefer to begin your experiment on the original start date. If you're running a title or image experiment, you'll also see a default for auto-publishing winning content. If you keep this setting defaulted, we'll automatically replace your current title or image with the alternate version if it performs significantly better. But you can deselect this setting if you prefer to publish manually. If you're using MYE to test A+ content, your experiment's details won't be automatically defaulted. but you can enter a name and hypothesis and select a duration and start date manually. After the details for your MYE experiment are set, you'll provide the alternate or B content you want to test against the current A content published in the Amazon store. If you're testing an alternate title, enter it in the space provided, double-checking that it's no more than 200 characters, including spaces. For some product categories, your title may need to be fewer than 200 characters. If you're testing an alternate main image, click the Upload Image button, making sure your image is high resolution and on a white background, and that it's a good representation of your products and packaging. If you're testing alternate About This Item bullets, enter them in the spaces provided. Remember that good bullet points often start with a short phrase, followed by a fragment that offers additional information. If you're testing an alternate product description, enter it in the space provided, double-checking that you've used complete sentences. Finally, if you're testing alternate A+ content, start by using the drop-down menu on the left to select A content that's already published on the detail page for your reference ASIN. Then, for your alternate B content, use the drop-down menu on the right to select Create New A+ Content, meaning you'll build alternate content from scratch. Or select Duplicate A Content, meaning you'll copy your A content and adjust it into an alternate version. If you created A+ content previously in MYE, you can also select an existing content variation from the drop-down menu. After creating the B content for your MYE test, review each part of your experiment again to make sure it's set up as intended. If you're running a title or image experiment, for example, make sure you've deselected any child product that you want excluded from the test. Then submit your experiment to Amazon by clicking the button in the upper right corner. After submission, you can check the status of your experiment anytime on the MYE homepage. If your experiment has a scheduled status, you're able to view its details and make edits. You'll only be able to deselect defaults for duration, start date, and publication for 48 hours after submitting your experiment. But you can make other adjustments until your experiment becomes active. If you adjust your MYE test, keep in mind that for any scheduled experiment already validated by Amazon, you'll be required to restart the validation process. If your experiment is active and running, you're no longer able to make edits. But you can view the experiment's details and cancel it if needed. If your experiment didn't pass validation, you'll see a failed status. You can view details, then edit the experiment and resubmit for validation. This concludes our training on setting up an MYE test. We encourage you to watch the next video in this series, which explains how to interpret MYE results. Thank you and happy selling in the Amazon store!